Ever feel like you're doing this teaching thing alone? You don't have to be. Shared teaching is all about sharing the workload through the power of collaboration and teamwork. Together, we'll walk through all the difficult parts of teaching and learn how to streamline our processes, fine-tune our time management, and develop a more manageable workload. If that sounds like a dream come true to you, then welcome to the Shared Teaching Podcast. Let's share in the teaching to make those dreams a reality. Now here's today's Shared Teaching. Hello and welcome back to the Shared Teaching Podcast. I'm your host, Susan, and I'm so excited and happy that you have decided to join me on my little podcast journey here. You are listening to episode 136, where we're going to talk all about how to set up some sight word centers that are going to last you all year. This, my friends, is the genius behind centers. You don't want to have centers that you have to change out every single week. You want to make sure you have centers that will last and also centers where students won't get bored. They don't want to do the same thing over and over and over again, just like you don't want to. And while, yes, that can be easy, when you're halfway through the school year and the problems start and the kids don't really want to do centers and they're goofing off and talking to their friends and doing other things instead, you're going to realize something is wrong and needs to change. So let's set you up right. If you are in America, we are just beginning our back to school era. If you're not, then this is a nice, good refresher for the rest of your school year. Now, sight words are one of my favorite topics other than writing. And sight words and writing for me go hand in hand because the more sight words students know by heart, the faster it is they can get their words down on paper, right? Because most of our language is comprised of those sight words, and then the rest of it they can phonetically spell out. At least that's my viewpoint. Okay, so sight word centers are an engaging, effective way to help students master those essential words and vocabulary, if you want to call it that. By creating a sustainable system, you're going to set up centers at the beginning of the school year that are going to last you the entire year without needing to constantly introduce new activities. Can I say, yay? Right? That's what we want. We want to save ourselves time. We want to have less stress, and we want an easy flowing system, right? So the key is to keep the activities consistent while the words and things are changing. This is going to help it feel fresh for the students because they're practicing new words. Okay, so let's start by creating sight word lists. Now you want to determine which sight words your students need to master. And this can be time consuming, but I feel it is necessary. I actually used to take my second graders and I would give the whole class the 220 Dolch words, not all at the same time, mind you. I would break it apart, and I would test about 20 at a time, and this would go on for several days until I got to a point where students were just really struggling, and then I had them stop. Now, I don't teach in affluent schools, so if you are teaching in a school that is not Title I, the parents work well with the students, they do their homework all the time, then this might not even be necessary for you. They might come to your class and they know their sight words. But I'm talking to those of you who teach in schools like I do, where the students, even in second grade, are still struggling to spell words like was, or know which there to use, or you is spelled wrong, right? We're talking about just the letter U instead of Y-O-U. You are my people, okay? You need this system. So whether you decide to use my products from TPT or not, totally up to you. But I have things available for you, which I will link in the show notes, of course. But one of the things that I like to do is I pre-test my students, like I was saying. And an easy way to pre-test students, especially if you have like a fluctuating roster, is to make it automatic. I have a system where I have read out in groups of 5 all of the sight words, so there are audio files the students listen to and take their quick little spelling test. There's a pre-test one, like I was talking about, in groups of 20 or 25, depending on which level of the Dolch words they're in, it will give them either 20 words or 25 words to spell out. And then I look it over. If I see quite a lot of errors, I stop them there. As long as I have at least 5 words they don't know, then that's the list that they're going to work on. Sometimes it straddles a couple lists. So maybe they know 4 out of the 5 words in the first list, but then they missed 3 of the 5 words in the second list. They're going to still have that one that they missed from the first list and the 4 that they missed on the second list, if that makes sense. And then those are their 5 words. Okay, so I use Dolch words, but you can use Fry words. You can use whatever your district has, whatever your grade level likes to use. It really doesn't matter, okay? Words are words, but Dolch is just what I started with, and I just kind of have a fondness for them, so that's why I'm Dolch all the way. So you're going to have those as your starting points, whatever their 5 is that they missed. And then you're going to group those words into manageable sets. So I group them in groups of 5, right? I just took pre-primer all the way through, and I just said, okay, here's 5 words, draw a line. 5 words, draw a line. You can make them not alphabetical, but you can make them by phonetic groupings. I've seen a lot of free things online that group them that way, so that's an option too. I'm old school, so I just kept them the way they were basically, and then I color coded them, which I'll talk about in a minute. But you're going to assign your students those lists of words. Now, your class is going to be all over the place, and that is okay. With my system, it makes it really easy for them to get what they need. Your high kids aren't practicing the words that they already know, and so you're going to have less problems in the classroom because students are working on their individual lists, right? Now, it can get kind of overwhelming, but if you have a system in place from the beginning, it's quite manageable, I promise. So, storing materials. This is where you need to start, right? So you have your list, you know which groups are which. You need to think of how you're going to store these materials. So to keep them organized, I like to use color-coded book bins. I get them from Walmart, and I do rainbow color because it's really easy for students to understand and know the rainbow order. Oh, if I'm on the red list, then I go to the orange list, then I go to the yellow list, and then I go to the green list, and then I go to the blue list, right? They know that rainbow order, so it's just natural progression. Okay, so if you're not into rainbows, that's okay. Do whatever you want to do, but those are just happen to be widely available, right? I can see them at Michael's and Walmart and Hobby Lobby and Staples and Amazon, and you can find rainbow order book bins. You can also get like white or black ones and make your own labels so they're whatever colors you want to be having. So rainbow order, nothing to do with pride or anything. It's just an easy, simple way for kids to remember that order. Now, you want to make sure that you're storing, for instance, the pre-primer words are red, so you're going to store them in a red bin. The second grade words would be in a green bin. And then it makes it really easy to switch out words for each center or tell students, okay, you're in the yellow bin, you pick the yellow words and activities from the yellow bins, right? Students can look for that specific list that they need by looking in their color bin. So it makes it really simple, right? That's all you have to do. Be like, you're in the yellow one, right? Your whole class is on a center. They pick from the yellow words, another kid picks from the red words. And as the weeks go by, hopefully you don't have like most of your class still in the red list, that they've kind of evened out a little bit more. So you don't have to have lots of multiple copies of each activity in the same bin so that each student can have a turn. I hope that makes sense. You're also going to need to store any kind of materials you need for each center. So I like those little mini task boxes. They're like made for photos. And I put like the dice for the board game that they're going to play, or I put, what else do I put in there? I put in like little felt pieces to use as erasers, the expo markers that they might need, and the little tubs of Play-Doh do not fit in those task boxes, so I just throw them in the book bin itself, along with any of the laminated activities. Okay, so hopefully you're picturing that in your head right now. And then I also have like one of those big plastic file boxes. It doesn't have a lid on it. It's just a crate. There you go, file crate. And I have bought from Staples. This is extra. You don't have to do this, but I like to be visual and color coded, right? So I bought myself rainbow order of files, and I set up my file box with my rainbow colored files, and then I went ahead and photocopied all that I would need of my lists for the year on all my activities. So when I did the pre-assessment, it gave me an overview of my class, and I could say, oh, these kids tested out of red. So let's say I had 20 kids in my class, 5 kids tested out of red. Okay, I'm only making 15 copies of the red. But then all the students need the orange because maybe those 5 that tested out are on orange. So now I need 20 copies of orange. Do you see what I'm saying? So each file folder has whatever number I need, and I get that out early in the school year because I've pre-tested my kids. Now, because I can have a fluctuating amount of kids, I might just throw in like 2 or 3 extra copies. And there's always a student that forgets a copy, loses it, something happens. So you just want to have a few extra on hand. And I like to use the Astro Brights paper. Again, not necessary. I've used plain paper in the past. I've even thrown construction paper through the copier. But now that the newer copiers, they tend to not like it as much as the older copiers did. So I would not recommend that, but it can be done. Okay, so we put all those things in a big file crate. The file crate is for you. The students don't use it, so that just sits on top of a shelf somewhere out of the student's way, but that you just know that that's your go-to place to get copies. If it fits in your file cabinet, great. Mine never did. I had too many things, so it was just out. All right, so I like to do several different activities for my sight words. And you're going to want to think of several different activities as well. So the ones that I use are sight word Play-Doh mats, sight word letterboxing, and then I have sight word interactive notebooks. Okay, so that gives me 3 rotations. I'm forgetting something. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but that gives me at least 3 rotations. And then I have like sight word buddies. So that's literally where the kids just have individual flashcards, and then each time it's like a quick little 5-minute game. Oh, I remember what it was, but okay. So let's start over. Sight word Play-Doh mats, sight word letterboxes, sight word interactive notebooks. Then we have our sight word buddies where they have their flashcards, and then they work on somebody that's in their level. So it doesn't have to be red list number 1. It's just somewhere in the red words your buddy is at, and you're going to go practice your words with your buddy. Chances are you know some of his words already, even if he's ahead of you. And if not, then he can help you with those new words, and you're kind of learning new words while you're learning your words. And then the other thing I have for them is like a little board game. It's just very generic board games with some dice, and then I teach them how to put the little, what do I have? Unifix cubes. So they pick a Unifix cube color that's not the same color as their partner. That's their little player person that moves around on the board game. And then they put their flashcards together in a pile, and they always initial the back of the flashcard so they don't get them mixed up together. This is a very important step when you're passing out the new word list, that they write their initials or their student number, whatever it is, on the back of their flashcards. So when they play the partner games, they're not getting mixed up. And then they just roll the dice, pick up a sight word card, they read it, they spell it. If it's correct, then they get to move on the game board, whatever they rolled, right? And it's just super simple. Nobody gets anything as a prize. They just get to the end and they win, right? Braggers' rights. Okay, so those are the activities that I have them do. And sometimes I change out the board games so they have like different pictures and stuff. So it just kind of makes it more exciting. It's the same activity, right? It just, the board game looks different. So now it's new and fresh and exciting, right? So if it's Halloween, it could be Halloween themed, you know? So those things will change, but the basics of how to play the game stays the same. Okay, so maybe Monday they start with the sight word mats. Tuesday, they're doing letterboxing. Wednesday, they're doing an interactive notebook page. Thursday, they're doing the sight word mats again, or they're working on the flashcards. Then they have sight word buddies, or they're doing like the game board activities. Just one thing each day. That's all I did. Super simple. And then the next day they go to the next center. So whatever they didn't do the day before, they're now doing the second day, right? And you can be very specific and say, okay, this is the order you're doing them in. But then you want to make sure that you don't have too many kids doing the same exact activity the same day, okay? If that's too much for you and you have enough materials, then everyone does the same thing on the same day. That's okay too. It's whatever is manageable for you because you need to adjust it for your classroom needs and what's going to work best for you. If your students are independent, you're going to allow them to choose which activity they want to work on each day, but maybe you have a little checklist so that they don't hit the same activity every single day and that they get through all of the different kinds because there are different ways of approaching the sight words and practicing them that's really going to help make the difference here. Okay, so remember the key is we are making centers that last, so the activities stay the same, and the sight words are the words that are changing. Sometimes the look of the board game, that can change too, right? Okay, so when you're introducing the centers, you want to make sure that you do this after you've figured out the organization, how many kids at each center, and what list each kid's going to be on. You want to figure out all those logistics, and then you're going to introduce the centers. Don't introduce them before you figure all that other stuff out. Okay, so what's going to be successful for centers is making sure you've introduced them properly to your centers. You really want to take the time to be super explicit with the expectations for each center. You want to model how to use the materials correctly, and you're going to walk through a few sight word examples as a whole class, right? They're watching you, or they're watching a group of kids play it, and they're like taking notes almost. They're commenting, oh, I saw what Johnny did over here. Oh, and Susie did this. Oh, I liked how they did that. Or, oh, they didn't put that away very well. Maybe they should have done this. You're finding what's good and what's wrong so that we can fix those mistakes early. Something that I really like to use to help introduce things is the Two Sisters book. I'm drawing a blank right now. Why do I always do this as soon as I'm recording? The Daily Five. It's written, I believe, it's called the Two Sisters. They have a good framework of how to model this out for your students with like the do's and do nots, or I can't remember what they call it, but it will help you if you haven't introduced centers before. Take a moment, read that book. It's very short. Okay. So you're going to introduce each activity one at a time. So maybe Monday, you're just talking about how to use the sight word Play-Doh mats. It gives kids a chance to practice, or you watch a group and then another group does it and you're watching that group do it. However you want to do it, you're just doing the sight word mats. Okay? Then the next day you're going to do the next thing, which is maybe the letterboxing. And you're all watching the kids while they're working on the letterboxing and you're discussing what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, whatever the case may be. If the noise level is too much, you shut it down. Be very explicit. Do not waver on your expectations because this is the time to model what you expect from them. And if you're allowing them to get away with those kind of things, they will continue to do it. So you want to make sure, nip it in the bud, be firm, right? Okay. So once students are comfortable with all the activities, you're going to be able to have them rotate through the centers, hopefully without your help, without needing to reteach. And you only need to change the sight words out when students are learning those words and moving on to the next list. Sometimes it's very quick. Sometimes our friends need a lot longer to practice the same list of words. But the one thing I will say is the flashcard buddies, they change pretty often because if they're testing out of the words like they should be testing out of the words, then you're going to be rotating through new buddies. And so that changes too, and that makes it feel fresh and exciting, right? Because now I'm not doing the same cards every week with the same buddy. I'm getting new buddies. Okay. Again, we are working on having sight word centers that last all year. So we want the activities stay the same all year. Okay. The beauty is that they're consistent activities. The words are changing. By having the same activities, you save time. You don't have to introduce them to kids all the time. And the students know your expectations. They're actually practicing the words the way they're supposed to be practicing them because you've been very explicit in your teaching. Okay, let me just explain a little bit further about what these activities are that I have. They are available in my TPT store. Shameless plug. I will have them linked in the show notes. if you're interested in them. Okay, so the first ones are sight word mats. Okay, so they're laminated word mats, and they use Play-Doh to shape the letters. So in big, Play-Doh-ish letters across the top of the mat, the kids can form like the snakes, right? And roll the letters out in Play-Doh. So they're learning the letter formation, and they're forming out the Play-Doh letters to make this word. So it's one word on each mat. And then they have whiteboard markers, and they are tracing over the word multiple times. Depending on the size of the word, it can be like 4 or 5 times. They're writing this word. And then there's an example sentence. So then they can write it again in a sentence so they've practiced it in a sentence. There's an anchor sentence. So every one of my sight word products use this same practice sentence that has this sight word in it. So they start to recognize which word's which, right? And there's always a picture as well that goes with it to kind of prompt them if they need help reading the word. So those are the sight word Play-Doh mats. Then we have the sight word letter boxes. So again, it's a laminated mat that focuses on one word. And here, there's actually a sentence, and the students have to figure out which word from the sentence needs to be written in the letter boxes. So they're kind of doing some thinking here, right? They're counting the letters, they're looking at the letter shapes, they're trying to figure out which mystery word belongs in those letter boxes. And then they put them correctly, hopefully, in the letter boxes, so they're paying attention to the shape of the letters again. Which letters are tall, what letters are, hanging letters. Is there a word in the sentence that has a hanging letter? I'm going to find that. Oh, that's probably my key word. That's going to go in my letter box. Okay. Then we have the sight word interactive notebooks. So these are written as a 5-day process. So you could have them do their sight word notebook page first every single day before they do their other center rotations. Or there's just a day where that whole center time they're working on all their sight word notebook pages. Really up to you how you want to use it. They're just like little mini half sheet pages, right? So it's 2 pages on one piece of paper. And I've designed them for less cutting to make it really simple and easy to use. I talk a lot about them in episode 81 on the podcast. So if you want to learn more about the sight word notebooks, you are more than welcome to listen to 81 and learn about them. But each day has a quick, easy activity. The activities often repeat. Again, we're having that repetition of activity. So once you taught them once, oh, I know how to do this now. But it's not every Monday is the same cut and paste activity. It's different because I mix it up a little bit. So one week, all the activities are new because it's the first time they've done the notebook. The next week, maybe 4 of the activities are the same. Oh, now I got a 5th activity and it's a new one, right? So it's changing as they go through the notebook. So it's keeping it fresh and new. And then I liked what I did, hopefully you will too, is the 5th day is a review day. So, Friday is review if it happens to be on a Friday or whatever the 5th day is that they're doing this notebook. And when they get further along into the weeks, let's say it's week 3, any of the first 2 weeks, the words might be in there. So I'm taking all of the previous week's words and mixing it in on the review day. So it's not they just only get those 5 words for the week and then they're done. It's reintroducing them and keeping them fresh as they do those review pages. So again, by maintaining the same activities when you do your sight word centers, you're going to create consistency in the routine. You're going to allow students to focus on mastering their new words each week without the confusion of learning new center activities. So you can get all the details at the show notes of this podcast. And then also, I think I started talking about it, but I didn't really finish. I have a sight word product that's called Sight Word Spelling Program, where I've pre-recorded all of the sight word lists and the pre-tests. And you can just kind of like plug and play with kids to assess them. So that's a really simple, easy way to keep up on the differentiation. So I hope you found this episode helpful with or without the TPT selling thrown in. And I do appreciate you being a podcast listener. Make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever it may be on the podcast platform that you like. And stay tuned for future episodes. Bye for now. If you've loved this show, then join me in sharing the teaching,
hitting that subscribe button,
and leaving us a review on
iTunes,
so we can be found by more teachers like you who are ready to start sharing the workload. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Find new episodes each week on sharedteaching.com. Thanks for listening to the Shared Teaching Podcast.